Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. As the war in Ukraine enters its sixth month, Russia and Ukraine signed deals on Friday to reopen Ukrainian ports on the Black Sea in an effort to increase grain exports. The deals were brokered by the United Nations and Turkey. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres praised the development.
And let there be no doubt, this is an agreement for the world. It will bring relief for developing countries on the edge of bankruptcy and the most vulnerable people on the edge of famine.
On Saturday, just a day after the deal was reached, Russia attacked the Black Sea port of Odessa. Ukraine said the missile attack damaged infrastructure, including a grain warehouse. Russia said the missiles were targeting Ukrainian military assets, including a docked warship and a warehouse housing U.S.-supplied anti-ship missiles. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky decried the attack on Odessa as, quote, barbarism, and said it, quote, destroyed the very possibility of dialogue with Russia. In related news, some U.S. lawmakers are calling on the Pentagon to send military advisors to Ukraine. Republican Michael Waltz of Florida and Democrat Mikey Sherrill of New Jersey made the call after meeting with Zelensky in Kyiv Saturday. The New York Times recently reported the CIA already has personnel inside Ukraine. Burma's military junta has executed 4 men who'd been jailed for opposing last year's military coup. These are believed to be the first executions in Burma in over 30 years. One of the prisoners, Chaw Min-yu, was the prominent pro-democracy activist also known as Ko Jimmy. He was a student leader in the 1988 uprising, has spent many years in jail. Another one of the political prisoners executed was Phyu Taw, a former rapper who became a lawmaker in Aung San Suu Kyi's party. Pope Francis has arrived in Western Canada for what he's called a pilgrimage of penance. The Pope is embarking on a 6-day visit of Canada to apologize for the abuse of Indigenous children who were removed from their homes and sent to church-run residential schools where they face psychological, physical, and sexual abuse. Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Commission described the practice, which went on for decades, as a form of cultural genocide. The commission determined more than 4,000 Indigenous children died from neglect or abuse in the residential schools. This is Tony Alexis, chief of the Alexis Nakota Sioux Nation.
As a leader of the Roman Catholic Church, Pope Francis' apology is an acknowledgement of the Church's role in the harm and pain caused to Indigenous peoples living in Canada. For some, our people, Pope Francis' apology will not be enough. Healing is not linear. This apology will be a fundamental step towards forgiveness, closure, healing, and reconciliation for many others. Much like Wakamne, the healing abilities, it is fitting that the Pope's visit to this healing place will bring healing to so many.
The World Health Organization's declared the monkeypox outbreak a public health emergency of international concern. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus made the announcement Saturday morning.
There are now more than 16,000 reported cases from 75 countries and territories and 5 deaths. WHO's assessment is that the risk of monkeypox is moderate globally and in all regions, except in the European region, where we assess the risk is high.
Monkeypox is not fatal, but can cause fever, rashes, and extremely painful lesions. It's most often spread through close, intimate physical contact. We'll have more on the WHO's decision and the U.S.'s decision not to call it a public health emergency after headlines. A federal jury has convicted former Donald Trump advisor Steve Bannon on 2 counts of criminal contempt of Congress for refusing to cooperate with the House Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol. After Trump lost the 2020 race, Bannon helped devise ways to overturn the election and keep Trump in the White House. Bannon is expected to appeal. He's scheduled to be sentenced in October. He faces up to 1 or 2 years in prison. This comes as Republican Congressmember Liz Cheney says the January 6th committee might subpoena Ginny Thomas, the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, if she refuses to answer questions about her role in the effort to overturn the election. In related news, the editorial pages of the Wall Street Journal and New York Post, which are both owned by Rupert Murdoch, have slammed Donald Trump for refusing to call off his supporters as they attacked the Capitol on January 6th. In its editorial, the New York Post wrote, quote, "It's up to the Justice Department to decide if this is a crime, but as a matter of principle, as a matter of character, Trump has proven himself unworthy to be this country's chief executive again," the New York Post said. China's reportedly issued stark warnings to the Biden administration over a planned trip by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan. China's publicly threatened to take, quote, strong measures if Pelosi makes the trip in August. But according to the Financial Times, China's privately warning the Biden administration it may respond militarily. Pelosi's trip has also faced opposition from within the Biden administration. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan reportedly opposes the trip out of a concern it could escalate tension in the region. If the trip goes ahead, Pelosi would become the most senior U.S. official to visit Taiwan in 25 years. At least 17 Haitians, including an infant, have died after a boat capsized near the Bahamas. The boat was carrying dozens of people who are trying to seek refuge in the United States. 25 people were rescued. Bahamian officials said they have arrested 2 individuals from the Bahamas on suspicion of human smuggling. This comes as Haiti faces a dire economic crisis amidst increasing violence between rival armed groups. In Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince, more than 300 people, including many children, have taken refuge in a high school to escape the violence. According to the United Nations, more than 934 people have been killed in Port-au-Prince so far this year. The UN has also documented nearly 700 kidnappings. More than 1,100 people have been rescued in recent days as they attempt to cross the Mediterranean on boats to seek refuge in Europe. The German group Sea-Watch says it carried out 5 rescue operations over a 24-hour period and saved over 440 people. Meanwhile, the Italian Coast Guard said it rescued nearly 700 who were packed on a fishing boat off the coast of Libya. 5 deaths were reported. In Tunisia, early turnout was light today as voters went to the polls to decide on whether to accept a new constitution put forward by President Kais Saied that would give his office sweeping new powers. Many opposition groups are boycotting today's vote, which comes exactly 1 year after he ousted the prime minister and suspended parliament in a move decried by critics as a coup. In California, some 2,000 firefighters are battling a large wildfire near Yosemite National Park that exploded in size over the weekend. The Oak Fire has burned nearly 16,000 acres and is 0% contained. In New Mexico, 2 people were killed, a third missing after flash flooding struck an area that recently burned in the state's largest wildfire on record. Elsewhere in New Mexico, a stretch of the Rio Grande River outside of Albuquerque has run dry for the first time in 40 years. This follows 3 consecutive years of extreme drought in the region. This comes as a heat wave continues across much of the United States. More than 85 million people were under a heat warning or heat advisory on Sunday. In New Jersey, the city of Newark hit an all-time record high of 102 degrees Fahrenheit Sunday, capping Newark's first-ever streak of 5 consecutive days of triple-digit heat. Here in New York City, activists declared Friday a climate emergency day as they observed the famous climate clock in Union Square ticking down from 7 years to 6 years. The clock marks the estimated time left to keep global heating under 1.5 degrees Celsius. Speaking with ABC's This Week, former Vice President Al Gore said on Sunday that extreme weather events will get even worse without immediate action on climate.
If we don't stop using our atmosphere as an open sewer, and if we don't stop these heat-trapping emissions, things are going to get a lot worse. More people will be killed, and the survival of our civilization is at stake.
A warning to our audience, this next story contains graphic footage and accounts of police violence. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation has opened an investigation into police officers in the city of Oakland after they were filmed chasing a black man to his family's home and kicking in the front door before beating, tasing, and violently arresting him. 25-year-old Brandon Calloway suffered multiple injuries to his arm, head, and left eye in the assault, which left him needing 8 stitches. Calloway's father says the beating left his son with severe psychological trauma. The violent arrest was captured on video by Calloway's girlfriend, who was screaming for the police to stop attacking her boyfriend. The video went viral on social media. The attack began after officers alleged Calloway drove 32 miles an hour in a 20-mile-per-hour zone and rolled through a stop sign. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.